we're pawnbrokers that happen to be on TV. The uniqueness of our situation is the American Jewelry and Loan business. We're a pawn shop. We deal with 1,000 people that come in to borrow money every day, and that's what drew attention to our store.
The empire started falling apart long before anyone noticed. Behind the cameras of Hardcore Pawn, businesses vanished, trusted employees disappeared, and scandals quietly piled up.
Well, my customers have been telling me for years, but lately, in the last 6 months, we have more customers coming in that are desperate in need of money.
At one point, a rumor spread online that Les Gold himself had died, forcing his own family to prove he was still alive. But that was only part of the chaos. What really happened inside Detroit's most famous pawn shop? And why did viewers never hear the full story? Join us as we uncover what truly happened that cost Les everything he had worked for. The pawnbroker who was born into it. Leslie Gold was born on June 20th, 1950, in Detroit, Michigan, into a family that had been making deals in that city for generations before he arrived. His grandfather owned Sam's Loans on Michigan Avenue in Detroit, a full-service pawn shop in the classical tradition where the gold ball hung above the door and the people who came through it were the people the rest of the city had stopped helping. Les made his first sale there at age 7, behind the counter of his grandfather's shop, and described the feeling of it in his 2013 autobiography as the single most clarifying experience of his life. He was 7 years old, and he already knew what he was going to do. By 12, he was buying pizzas at the parlor near his Hebrew school in Oak Park, Michigan, and selling them by the slice to the other students during break, which is the kind of business origin story that gets told at keynote speeches, and that also happens to be completely true. He graduated from Oak Park High School and went directly into the trade, working beside his family until he was ready to open his own operation. In 1978, at 28 years old, he opened American Jewelry and Loan at the Green 8 Shopping Center on 8 Mile Road in Oak Park. It was a single shop, modest by later standards, staffed by Les and his wife Lily, who had married him 3 years earlier and who would become the financial backbone and the quiet engine of everything that followed. The business grew because the city needed it. Detroit, in the late 1970s and through the 1980s, was a city being systematically abandoned by capital and industry. And into the vacuum left by that abandonment came the pawn economy. Small loans against personal property for people who could not access credit and needed money before Friday to keep the lights on. Gold understood that economy the way his grandfather had understood it. Not as exploitation, but as service, the provision of a financial instrument to people whom the banking system had explicitly declined to serve. He moved the shop to its current location on Greenfield Road, near 8 Mile in 1993, converting a former 50,000-square-foot bowling alley into what would eventually become the most recognizable pawn operation in the country. By the time a television producer noticed his local commercials running during Jerry Springer ad breaks in 1998, American Jewelry and Loan was already serving approximately 1,000 customers a day. So how does a local Detroit pawnbroker running ads during the Springer Show become the star of True TV's most watched series premiere in network history? The show that made him famous. The television pitch came from independent producer Richard Dominic, who had been working on The Jerry Springer Show and recognized in Gold's local commercial something that network reality television had not yet figured out how to manufacture. A genuinely charismatic businessman in a genuinely dramatic environment who did not need to be coached to produce watchable television. Seth Gold, Les's son and co-owner, was initially opposed to letting cameras into the shop. Les overruled him. That overruling would become, in retrospect, one of the defining dynamics of their on-camera relationship for the next 5 years. Hardcore Pawn premiered on True TV on August 16, 2010. and immediately set a record as the network's most-watched series premiere, drawing 2 million viewers on its first night. By 2013, that number had climbed past 3 million per episode. The show ran for 9 seasons and 159 episodes, and what it captured, ostensibly, was the daily operation of American Jewelry and Loan, the negotiations, the bizarre items, the disputes with customers, the management decisions that Les made, and the ones that Seth and Ashley made without telling him. What it actually captured was the internal architecture of a family business under pressure from every direction simultaneously, which is either the most relatable thing that has ever been put on a cable network or the most uncomfortable, depending on your relationship to the concept of workplace authority. Les was the patriarch in the classical sense, the man who made the final decision on everything and who was constitutionally incapable of delegating in a way that stuck. Seth was the modernizer, the marketing mind who drove the digital presence and who described his contribution as the difference between a Yellow Pages ad and an actual customer base. Ashley was the jewelry specialist. She held a graduate diamond certification from the Gemological Institute of America, who co-owned the store and whose relationship with her brother produced the most reliably explosive episodes of the show's entire run. The sibling rivalry between Seth and Ashley was not manufactured. Anyone who watched more than 3 episodes could see the difference between television conflict and the real irritation of 2 people who have been competing for the same parental approval for their entire adult lives. It was the latter, but behind the scenes of what the cameras showed, there was another story running that the episode titles, things like Family Traitor and You're Fired, I Quit, and Gold Day in Hell, only partially revealed. So what was actually happening inside the Gold family that the show gave you the headline but never quite the full story? The cracks that slowly formed. The most quietly damaging thing that Hardcore Pawn did to American Jewelry and Loan was not the drama it created, but the drama it revealed about an institution that had been operating for 30 years on relationships, trust, and Les Gold's ability to read people. The show's cameras were in the building every day. What they found in the end was that the building contained people who were not what they presented themselves to be, and that the presence of cameras accelerated a series of internal crises that might otherwise have been handled privately. Joe, known on the show as Big Joe, had been head of security at American Jewelry and Loan from the first season through the 6th. His job was to protect the merchandise. He was caught on camera stealing scrap gold from the jewelry technician's desk, the exact desk where the store's most valuable raw material passed through on its way to being melted down or reset. The footage aired in the Season 6 finale. He was arrested. He was fired. The scene in which Les reviews the footage and the implication registers on his face is not the face of a man watching television. It is the face of a man realizing that someone he trusted in a store he built had been robbing him while the cameras watched. Rich Pyle had been the store manager at American Jewelry and Loan for 25 years before the show began, a man who had worked for Les Gold longer than most of the show's viewers had been alive. He appeared in the first 6 seasons as the institutional memory of the operation, the person who knew where everything was and how everything worked. Then came the episode in which Les sent him home in what appeared to outside observers to be a disproportionate response to a relatively minor judgment call. Rich Pyle was written out of the show after that episode and did not return. He has never publicly given a full account of what happened. Bobby Janiak, known as Bobby J, left the shop in 2016 and subsequently posted on social media that he felt he had been taken advantage of as an employee. Les Gold has not publicly responded to those claims. What the cumulative effect of those departures created was the impression, accurate or not, of a family business that consumed the people around it, with the same efficiency it applied to the merchandise that came through the front door. The Gold family would dispute that characterization and point to the decades of loyal employment and the community work and the charity fundraising that never made it into an episode title. Both things can be simultaneously true. And then Ashley left, and that one was the departure that the cameras were actually present for when it finally happened. So what did losing his daughter from the business actually cost Les Gold? And is that the loss that nobody in the Gold family has ever fully spoken about? The day Ashley left, and what it cost the show. Ashley Gold Broad had been working at American Jewelry and Loan since before the cameras arrived, having taken time off for maternity leave at one point, and returned because the business was, in every practical sense, her inheritance as much as Seth's. Her diamond certification was real. Her knowledge of the jewelry department was the operational foundation of the most profitable section of the store. Her relationship with Seth on camera was the most reliable engine of conflict the show had, and her relationship with her father oscillated between warm and explosive in the way that father-daughter dynamics in family businesses tend to oscillate when neither party is particularly inclined to back down. In December 2015, it was announced that Ashley would be departing from the show. No new episodes aired after that announcement. The official explanation from the network was that truTV had shifted its programming direction away from documentary reality and toward comedy, which is accurate as a description of what truTV did in 2015, but which does not fully account for why a show averaging 3 million viewers per episode was canceled rather than moved to a network better suited to its format. Ashley subsequently launched her own online jewelry business. She did not return to American Jewelry and Loan. The relationship between Ashley and the family business after her departure has not been publicly aired in the same detail that the preceding 5 years of it were, which is itself a kind of information. The show was gone, the head of security was in handcuffs, the longtime manager was gone, the daughter was gone. And the restaurant that Les Gold opened in 2014 in his grandfather's old building on Michigan Avenue, a pawn shop-themed dining concept called Gold Cash Gold that was supposed to be the sentimental keystone of the Gold family empire, was about to close too. So what happened to the most personal business venture Les Gold ever attempted? And why did the building that started everything end up being the place where the losses became impossible to ignore? Gold Cash Gold, the restaurant that couldn't make the deal work. In 2014, Les Gold did something that was an equal parts business decision and tribute to the family that built everything he had. The building on Michigan Avenue that had once housed Sam's Loans, the shop where his grandfather had run the operation and where Les had made his first sale at age 7, was remodeled into a restaurant. Gold Cash Gold was a pawnshop-themed dining concept that opened in Detroit's Corktown neighborhood, one of the city's most rapidly gentrifying areas in the post-bankruptcy period. The idea was to combine the nostalgia of the family's founding location with the upscale dining market that Corktown was attracting as Detroit's recovery drew investment and younger residents back into neighborhoods that had been empty for a generation. It did not work. The restaurant closed in February 2020, citing underwhelming performance, which is the polished way of saying that a concept built around the romance of pawnbroking was not sufficient to compete in a dining market where romance alone does not cover food costs and rent. The timing placed the closure in the weeks immediately before the COVID-19 pandemic arrived and shut down the restaurant industry nationwide, which means Gold Cash Gold would likely have closed regardless of whether the underlying performance numbers were strong or not. But the numbers were not strong before the pandemic arrived. The concept had struggled. The building that started everything ended without the tribute that was intended. The losses were accumulating in a pattern that a pawnbroker would recognize immediately. The restaurant was collateral against a bet that did not pay out. And when the collateral was gone, what remained was the original business, which was still standing, still operating, and still serving the people who needed it, but serving them in larger and more desperate numbers than Les Gold had ever seen in 40 years. So, what did the man who has watched Detroit's economy from the closest possible vantage point see happening to his customers? And what does the pawn line look like when an economy that was supposed to be recovering starts showing signs that the recovery never reached the people who needed it most? The street-level economist and what the pawn line tells you. Les Gold has described himself as a street-level economist for most of his public career, by which he means that a pawn shop is the most accurate real-time economic instrument available to anyone trying to understand what is actually happening to working people in an American city. The stock market tells you what wealthy people are doing with money. The pawn line tells you whether people can cover rent. Those are two different data sets, and for most of American history, they have told two very different stories about the state of the economy. In a March 2024 Fox News interview, Gold told the Ingram Angle that the pawn line at his 8 Mile store was approximately twice as long as the redemption line, meaning that for every person coming in to pick up an item they had previously pawned, 2 people were coming in to pawn something new. That ratio, he said, was the clearest indicator he had seen in his career that working people were not covering their monthly expenses and were falling further behind each month. When the Fox News host described those customers as living month to month, Gold corrected her. They were living week to week. The shift from monthly budgeting to weekly survival was, in his view, the most significant economic signal the store had produced since the 2008 financial crisis. He has pointed out publicly that pawn loans are non-recourse, meaning that if a customer cannot repay the loan and forfeits the collateral, their credit score is unaffected, which makes the pawn shop the only lender in most of these customers' lives that cannot make their situation worse by helping them. That distinction matters to Gold, and it is the thing he returns to consistently in media appearances when asked whether he is profiting from desperation. The people who come through the door have already been declined by every institution that had the power to help them with less cost. He is the last available option, not the first choice. The economic conditions that filled his store in 2024 showed no signs of easing in 2025 or 2026. American Jewelry and Loan remains operational at its Detroit flagship and 3 additional locations across Michigan. Les and Seth continue to work at the Detroit location together. The building is open. The deals are still being made. So after all the challenges, what does Les Gold's life actually look like in 2026? And is it the life that 47 years behind the counter built him, or a smaller version of it? Les Gold's taking a step back. Les Gold is 75 years old, still working the floor at the Greenfield Road location, still making the deals, and still appearing periodically in the media to explain what the length of his pawn line says about the state of the American economy. His net worth is estimated at approximately $5 million, a figure that represents 47 years of continuous operation across multiple market crashes, a national television run, a restaurant failure, a death hoax, and the departures of employees, cast members, and family members that reality television accelerated rather than created. Seth Gold continues to run the store's marketing operation and has built a significant TikTok and social media presence that revisits hardcore pawn moments and updates the show's audience on the current state of the business. He occasionally brings his father into the frame. Ashley operates her own online jewelry business and is not involved in the day-to-day operations of American Jewelry and Loan. The sibling rivalry that drove 9 seasons of television has resolved itself, as sibling rivalries in family businesses tend to resolve, not through a dramatic scene, but through the quiet administrative fact of one party departing for other premises. Gold's autobiography, For What It's Worth. Business Wisdom from a Pawnbroker, published in 2013, reached number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list in the Advice and How-To category and remains in print. He continues to do speaking engagements and sales training seminars, appears regularly on outlets including Fox Business, Forbes, USA Today, and CNN, and his Cameo account, on which he records personalized video messages for fans of the show, has a rating of 4.98 out of 5 from 326 reviews, with his most recent video recorded in February 2026. He has also launched Fast Pawn in partnership with PawnMate Inc., a mobile and kiosk-based pawn service that allows customers to manage loans and conduct transactions without the cash encounter format of the traditional pawn shop floor. He also continues to support the Thaw Fund, the Detroit charity that helps families pay heat and electricity bills, and has raised tens of thousands of dollars for the organization through events held in his store after hours. After all the behind-the-scenes drama, do you think the Gold family could ever return to reality TV? Or has the camera's influence permanently changed the business? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.